Imagine, if you will, looking at a massive, intimidating book on a shelf.
Oh, we've all been there.
Right. You look at it and just wonder, how do I even begin to conquer that?
Yeah, it's like staring at a mountain.
Exactly. Well, today's deep dive is exactly that shortcut. We are tackling the foundational texts of, probably one of the most famous imaginary worlds ever created.
Oh, absolutely. J.R.R. Tolkien's The Silmarillion.
Yeah, but we're looking at a very specific language and universe. Imagine a language so utterly complete, so dense with historical weight that it literally demands a universe be built around it.
Right, which completely, inverts our understanding of how narrative works.
Yeah, we usually think of world building as starting with a map or a political conflict or a protagonist.
But what if the genesis of the cosmos wasn't, a Big Bang of plot, but the slow, meticulous evolution of a noun?
A noun. It's wild. You aren't creating a world to tell a story. You are discovering a world because the grammar you just invented requires a civilization to speak it.
Exactly. And that inversion is exactly why we are here today.
Right, because we know you, listening to this, you probably already have the maps of Beleriand memorized.
Yeah, you already know the tragic fate of the Sons of Fëanor.
So we aren't going to just sit here and recite the timeline of the First Age.
No, definitely not. We are looking at the philosophical, the theological, and really the linguistic engine that drives that timeline.
We want to understand the why behind the history.
Exactly. We want to get to the core of it.
So to do that, we've pulled a very specific stack of sources. We're looking at the introductory framework of the book.
Right. Specifically the foreword by Christopher Tolkien.
Yeah, and that incredibly revealing 1951 letter J.R.R. Tolkien wrote to his publisher, Milton Waldman.
Plus the opening mythological texts, right? The Aenal and Dale, the music of the Aenir, and the Valaquenta, the account of the Valar.
Exactly. Our mission today is to guide you through the cosmic origins, the deepest themes, and the overarching history of this universe without you feeling, completely overwhelmed.
Right. We want to extract the ultimate aha moments of this lore.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start by looking at how this massive, complicated book even came to exist.
Because the sheer improbable reality of how this text came to be is just, the foreword alone recontextualizes the entire book.
It really does. When you hold a copy of the Silmarillion, you're holding a book published in 1977.
Right, which is 4 years after Tolkien's death.
Yeah, edited by his son Christopher Tolkien, with some help from Guy Gavriel Kay. But the material inside is not like a sequel.
No, and it's not a prequel written after the success of The Lord of the Rings either.
Right. It's actually a much older work. The earliest iterations of these myths were penciled in these battered notebooks back in 1917.
Yeah, by a 25-year-old soldier convalescing during the First World War.
Writing the fall of Gondolin in a trench? The span of time is just staggering.
Over half a century of work. And reading Christopher Tolkien's foreword, you realize what a monumental, almost crushing burden that half-century of revision created for him as the editor.
Oh, I can't even imagine. I picture Christopher's job like, being handed a 10,000-piece jigsaw puzzle by your father.
Yeah.
But the puzzle pieces have been constantly carved and reshaped over 50 years.
Right, to fit a new grand design that he kept entirely in his head.
Exactly. And your job is to somehow force them all to fit into one single coherent frame without losing the original picture.
Which is basically impossible. Christopher admits that complete consistency was just not achievable.
Right, because if he had presented the true multi-layered diversity of the texts,
all the conflicting drafts and changing theological frameworks.
It would have been like a dense academic study, not a readable mythology.
Exactly. So he made a deliberate editorial choice to frame the Silmarillion as a compendious narrative.
Like a historical document compiled long after the events.
Yeah, drawn from disparate ancient sources and poems. Which is brilliant because it mirrors how real-world mythology works.
Right. We don't have one perfect, internally consistent version of Norse or Greek myth. Yeah. We have compiled traditions.
But to understand why Tolkien was so obsessed with getting this compilation published alongside his Ring narrative, we really have to look at that 1951 letter to Milton Waldman.
Oh, the Waldman letter. So Waldman was an editor at Collins, right?
Yes. And the context of this letter is crucial. Tolkien had finished The Lord of the Rings, but he was essentially holding it hostage.
Which is such a wild move. He was demanding that his publisher release The Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion together.
As one massive continuous saga of the jewels and the rings.
Which, from a mid-century publishing standpoint, was absolute madness.
Completely. Here, print this wildly expensive, massive fantasy epic, But you also have to print this dense, archaic, mythological textbook alongside it.
Yeah, good luck pitching that today. So, to justify this demand, Tolkien writes this letter, which is essentially an essay on his own creative psyche.
And he admits right away that it's difficult to do without sounding like an egomaniac.
Right, but he reveals an initial desire that he himself calls absurd to create a mythology specifically for England.
Because he felt England was impoverished in that regard. It lacked its own native myths tied to its soil and language.
Unlike Greek or Celtic myths, he felt the Arthurian legends failed as an English mythos, not just because they were too British or Celtic, but because they explicitly contained the Christian religion.
Which is a vital distinction for him. He believed that for a myth to work, it must reflect moral and religious truth implicitly.
Right, the moment you introduce explicit real-world religion, it ceases to be a myth and becomes allegory.
Or historical fiction, yeah. He wanted a body of connected legend, ranging from the cosmic scale down to romantic fairy stories.
And the foundation of all of this was language, because Tolkien was a philologist.
Exactly. He created the Elvish languages first.
Which blows my mind. The languages didn't serve the story grew out of the need to provide a history for those languages.
Yeah, he says that out of these invented Elvish languages are made nearly all the names that appear in his legends.
So if a root word in an Elvish language shifted its meaning over 1,000 years, he had to invent a historical schism or a migration to justify why.
The language demanded the history. What's fascinating here is that Tolkien didn't feel he was inventing these stories.
Right, he felt he was recording what was already there somewhere.
Exactly. This shifts our understanding of his creative process from pure invention to an act of sub-creative discovery.
Okay, so if the stories were built just to serve the invented languages, does that explain why the names and terminology feel so uniquely cohesive compared to, other fantasy settings?
Absolutely. It provides what he calls an illusion of historicity. When we read these texts, our brains subconsciously process the linguistic consistency.
Because the shared etymological roots in the names of rivers and mountains are mathematically real.
Right. And in his Catholic worldview, if you create a sub-creation that is true to the primary world's moral and aesthetic laws, you aren't just making things up.
You are participating in a divine act of uncovering, which brings us right to the core thematic engine of the entire legendarium.
Yeah, in the Waldman letter, Tolkien outlines the three main themes driving his entire mythology.
Right. Fall, mortality, and the machine. Or magic.
If we understand how he defines these three words, we can really decode the motivation of every single character.
Okay, let's look at mortality and immortality first, because he fundamentally alters how we perceive them.
Yeah, we usually view death as a tragedy, the ultimate enemy. But Tolkien frames the doom of the elves, their immortality, as a supreme burden.
Because elves are immortal, they are tied to the world as long as it lasts.
Right. Even if their physical bodies are destroyed, their spirits are reincarnated, they are trapped in the circles of the world.
So their burden is the grief of deathlessness and time passing. They have to witness the decay of everything they love.
Exactly. Every beautiful kingdom crumbles. Every mortal friend withers and dies. They carry the cumulative grief of thousands of years.
Which casts the fate of men in a completely different light. Men have the doom or gift of mortality.
Which means freedom from the circles of the world. Men are only here for a brief time, and then their spirits leave the physical universe entirely.
But of course, because men cannot see beyond the world, they perceive this gift as a terrifying doom.
They fear the unknown. And this mutual misunderstanding, elves envying men's freedom and men envying elven enduring life, is the soil from which the fall grows.
Okay, so the fall in Tolkien's universe isn't just about sin.
No, it's specifically about possessiveness.
When a sub-creator wants to be the lord of their private creation and rebels against the laws of mortality or reality.
Yes, they cross the line from an artist sharing their gift to a tyrant hoarding their treasure.
And when they want to freeze their creation or coerce other wills, they turn to the machine.
Right, or magic. And this is perhaps the most misunderstood concept in his philosophy.
Yeah, so what does this all mean? Does it mean Tolkien was fundamentally anti-technology? You hear that all the time.
People assume he just had a reactionary hatred of factories and wanted everyone to live in an agrarian utopia.
Right. But it's not that tools are bad, but the motive behind the tool, right? Using it to dominate others rather than to create art is where the evil lies.
Exactly. Tolkien defines the machine as the use of external plans or devices to bulldoze the real world.
It's inherently tied to a desire for power. a shortcut to domination.
Yeah. And he points out that elvish magic isn't about power. It's about art.
Right, he notes that Galadriel gets really frustrated with hobbits confusing elvish art with the enemy's dark magic.
Because for the elves, their magic is subcreation aimed at beauty, delivered without human limitations.
While the enemy's magic is pure coercion.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this reveals why the bad guys in this universe are always industrialists or lords of machines.
They start with good intentions, like fixing the world, but ultimately demand sheer domination.
Yes, the tyrant begins as a benefactor who loses patience with the free will of others.
Which perfectly sets up the tragedy of the first Ave, the jewels of light.
Right, and this is the non-anthropocentric part of the lore. Men are latecomers. The central focus here is on the elves.
Specifically, Fëanor, the chief elvish artificer. He captured the divine light of the two trees of Valinor into 3 supreme jewels.
The Silmarils, before the enemy killed the trees.
The Silmarils perfectly encapsulate those themes we just discussed, incredible art becoming an object of possessive obsession.
Yeah, because Fëanor views the jewels as his exclusive property.
Yeah.
And when the enemy steals them and sets them in his iron crown,
Fëanor doesn't just mourn a loss of his art. His possessiveness metastasizes.
he and his sons take a terrible, blasphemous oath to wage war against anyone who claims the jewels.
Anyone, mortal, immortal, divine, it doesn't matter. This leads to them leaving paradise, killing their fellow elves, and launching this hopeless, treacherous war in Middle-earth.
It's the ultimate manifestation of the fall. They bind their souls to an unyielding absolute.
It's like a generational curse, a toxic inheritance. I always think of it like a brilliant artist painting a masterpiece, but the obsession to protect it destroys his entire family and poisons his legacy.
That's a perfect analogy, and Tolkien highlights this tragic irony through the story of Beren and Luthien.
Right, Beren is a mortal man, and Luthien is an immortal elf maiden.
And Beren wrests a Silmaril from the enemy's crown, winning Luthien's hand.
But the supreme victory actually awakens the sleeping oath.
Right, exactly. Because the jewel is brought back into the world of the elves, it leads to ultimate disaster for the elvish kingdoms.
The sons of Fëanor massacre their own people for a rock. Think about how often a desire to hold on to something beautiful ends up destroying the very beauty you were trying to protect.
It's heartbreaking. And the climax of the First Age requires the intervention of the gods via Arundel the Wanderer.
Resulting in the jewels being lost forever, one in the sea, one in the earth, one in the sky as a star.
And the enemy is thrust into the void. Which brings us to the Second Age.
The Dark Age. The first enemy is gone, but his servant, Sauron, lingers.
Right. And many elves are counseled to return west, but some linger in Middle-earth.
Why? Why stay in the ruined lands?
Tolkien says they wanted to have their cake without eating it.
Have their cake and eat it too. That's such a blunt idiom for these ancient, tragic beings.
Well, they wanted the bliss of the West, but the prestige of being the highest people in Middle-earth.
In the West, they'd just be the lowest rung on the ladder. Here, they are revered as lords.
But remaining subjects them to mortal time. They become obsessed with fading.
They want to embalm the world, right? To freeze time and prevent change, which goes against the natural law of the world.
Yes, this is the second fall of the elves, a tragedy of nostalgia. And Sauron exploits this.
He appears fair, with seemingly good motives like rehabilitating ruined lands.
And together in a region, they forge the Rings of Power.
Whose primary function is to slow decay and preserve things as they are. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. If the elves' rings were originally made to preserve beauty and heal the earth, at what point does preserving beauty turn into unnatural control?
That's the fine line between conservation and control. The rings edge dangerously close to the concept of the machine.
Right, using a device to force the natural world to obey their will, and then Sauron secretly makes the one ring.
To control the others, by pouring his own inherent power into it.
But the elves sense this immediately, right? They realize the trap and hide their 3 rings.
Yes, and the resulting war destroys much of the West. But Sauron's critical error is outsourcing his soul to a device.
By putting his power into the ring to control the elves, he makes himself vulnerable.
Exactly. If the ring is destroyed, he is reduced to a mere memory of malicious will. It's the ultimate blind spot of the tyrant.
He just assumes everyone wants power. So while the elves struggle with time, men struggle with death.
Which brings us to the downfall of Numenor, the fall of men.
The faithful men are rewarded with the Atlantis-like Isle of Numenor and heavily extended lifespans.
But there is a condition. the ban.
The gods forbid them from sailing west to the immortal lands.
Right, so they won't become enamored with an immortality their physical bodies cannot endure.
Like a cosmic do not touch sign. The moment you give humanity paradise but put up one boundary line, human nature guarantees they will obsess entirely over what's behind that line.
It's inevitable.
Mm.
And over time, their long life breeds a possessive attitude towards their art and wealth.
They realize they have so much to lose, so they start fearing death, building massive tombs.
They exploit Middle-earth for taxes and wealth. This raises an important question about human nature.
Yeah.
Tolkien posits that reward on Earth is more dangerous for men than punishment.
Wow. Prolonged life didn't bring peace. It brought an agonizing obsession with death.
Exactly. And Tarkalion, a proud king, captures Sauron. But taking Sauron to Numenor is a massive mistake.
Because Sauron quickly rises from prisoner to chief counselor.
He executes a masterclass in gaslighting. He convinces the king that God is a lie invented by jealous Valar.
And that eternal life can be taken by force. He just manipulates their fear into violent hubris.
So Tarkalion breaks the ban, sailing in Armada West to make war on the gods.
Which is such an act of existential blasphemy that the gods lay down their power and God intervenes directly.
The sea swallows the Armada and Numenor.
And the flat world is bent into a sphere so that mortals can never again sail to the immortal lands.
The separation becomes absolute.
Okay, so we've seen how possessiveness and the fear of death dictate the sweeping histories, but we need to look at the exact origin point.
Right. Stepping back from the history, the sources provide the literal creation myth, the Anil Lindale.
The music of the Ainur. Eru Ilúvatar, who is God, creates the Ainur, these angelic spirits, from his thought.
And he doesn't just order them to build a universe. He propounds musical themes to them.
So creation here is a literal symphony. The act of creation is polyphonic.
Yes. But then Melkor, the most gifted Ainu, becomes impatient with the emptiness of the void.
He wants to subcreate, but he lacks the true power of creation, so his desire sours into a desire for mastery.
He weaves his own discordant thoughts into the music to increase his own glory.
And this causes a raging war of sound. I always describe this like a cosmic jazz band.
A jazz band, I like that.
Yeah. Like Melkor is the arrogant soloist trying to drown everyone out with a loud, repetitive trumpet blast.
He's not listening to the harmony. He's focused entirely on his ego.
But Ilúvatar is the genius band leader. He seamlessly reharmonizes the song.
Right, he counters with a second theme and then a third.
And that terrible trumpet solo actually creates a deeper, more beautiful blues rhythm, the third theme.
Which introduces the children of Ilúvatar, elves and men, conceived by God alone without the Ainur.
And then Ilúvatar stops the music entirely. He shows them a vision of what they just sang.
Yes, the world that is. And he sends the secret fire into the void to make it real.
Ilúvatar's ultimate mic drop is telling Melkor that no theme can be played that doesn't have its source in him.
Yes. Melkor's discord will ultimately just be an instrument to create things more wonderful than Melkor could imagine.
Evil isn't a co-equal opposite to good. It's a dissonance born of pride that God will utilize to create a more complex beauty.
Exactly. Which brings us perfectly to the Valaquenta, the powers of the world.
Right. Those Ainur who choose to enter the world become the Valar. Their power is bounded to the world until it is complete.
And they take physical shapes out of love for the children of Ilúvatar.
But they don't need bodies, right? It's just raiment clothing to them.
Yeah, the physical form is just a manifestation of their inherent spirit.
So let's talk about the key figures here. You have Manwë, Lord of the Breath of Arda.
The air, the winds, he is dearest to Ilúvatar.
And Varda, Lady of the Stars, feared and hated most by Melkor.
Revered by the elves as Elbereth.
Then there's Ulmo, Lord of Waters. He dwells in the deep ocean and rarely takes physical form.
But when he does, it's terrifying, like a crested wave in shimmering mail.
And the most crucial figure to note, especially in relation to everything we've discussed about subcreation, is Olli.
Olli the Smith, the maker.
The profound contrast between Olli and Melkor or Fëanor is just fascinating.
It really is. Olli loves the act of making, but unlike Melkor, isn't possessive of his creations.
Olli proves that you can be an incredibly gifted creator without falling into the trap of possessiveness.
Right. He creates for the joy of it and moves on.
Whereas Melkor and Fëanor create to dominate and hoard.
And as the Valar shape the world, Melkor constantly undoes their work.
Destroying valleys, spilling seas.
Yet the world is slowly made firm. Melkor's extreme cold doesn't destroy water, it creates the snowflake.
His violent heat creates the clouds and the rain. It's incredible.
The friction just provides the Valar the means to discover deeper forms of beauty.
And the most poetic insight from the elves is about water itself.
Yes, they say that in water, the echo of the great music lives more than in any other substance on Earth.
Which is just a stunning thought. We've really traveled a massive distance today, from a linguist's ambitious dream for an English mythology in 1917
Through profound philosophical reflections on mortality.
to the cosmic jazz of creation and the epic tragedies of fallen elves and drowned islands.
We've seen how the desire to preserve, possess, or dominate is the root of all the sorrow in Middle-earth.
And we really want to remind you, the listener, that these aren't just fantasy tropes. They are explorations of our own human desire for power, our fear of death, and our relationship with creation.
They ask us to examine our own relationship with time and the things we love.
Do we hold the beauty of the world with an open hand, like Ali, or clench our fists around it like Melkor? I want to leave you with one final lingering thought pulled right from the Valaquenta.
It's a beautiful image.
The elves believe that water retains the deepest echo of the original divine music of creation. The text notes that the children of Iluvatar listen to the voices of the sea, and yet know not what they listen for. So the next time you stand by the ocean and listen to the crashing waves, ask yourself, are you hearing the beautiful, sorrowful harmony of the Valar, or the lingering, chaotic discord of Melkor?